Greetings and salutations! In this video, I'm going to show you some of my most recent acquisitions for my record collection. You guys seem to like these videos. It's been a while since we've done one, and I got some new things recently. I kind of went on a buying spree, so I figured I would share. The first thing I'm going to show you is a 45 from 1984. This record is in absolute immaculate condition. And it's Yes, Owner of a Lonely Heart. This was their #1 comeback hit for that year. And I remember buying this 45 at Zayre's department store when it was new. I was 13 years old and I used my grass cutting money to buy it. And the other record that I bought that day, Sunglasses at Night by Corey Hart. I don't have that on 45 yet, but I'm looking for it. This, like I said, isn't just in absolute pristine condition. This is actually a new old stock pressing. So we're probably looking at the other side here, but yep, our song. But you can see it looks very, very good. So that got me started collecting. Here's a couple that I've had for a while that were just kind of next to Yes when I pulled them out of the box there. This is another record from that period of time, from the Footloose soundtrack. Let's Hear It for the Boy. This would have been, what, 1983? That's Denise Williams. Great tune. And a little bit later, in 1985, Wham had a #1 hit with Everything She Wants. And what you heard on the radio was what's on this 45. This is a special remix. It's not the same one that appeared on the album called Make It Big. And the flip side of that is Like a Baby. It's a great 45. And let's look at some LPs. I don't know if I've showed this one. If I have, it's been a very long time. Yes, 90125. I thought about it simply because of the fact that I'm showing the 45 of Owner of a Lonely Heart. This graphic on the front of this album, by the way, is proudly proclaimed to be done with an Apple II computer. That was a big deal back in 1983, early 84. When this came out. And this is an excellent sounding album produced by Trevor Horn, who had a group called the Buggles. Now, I have showed this record, but it's been a very long time. This is the Supremes' Greatest Hits from 1968. This is an original pressing from that year. And this is in well-loved condition. Somebody really liked this, but I haven't shown it in quite some time, and I was just listening to it the other day. Now, since this came out in '68, there's a few things that didn't appear on this album, like Love Child and Someday We'll Be Together, but you get most of it here. Very cool record. Greatest Hits records were a big deal in the late '60s and early '70s, and people bought them up, so record companies, wanted to get them out. I know I've shown this album, maybe even in the last couple of videos, and if I did, I apologize, but I can't show the next album without showing this one. This is my favorite Barry Manilow album from 1974. This is Barry Manilow 2. This is the one that features Mandy, and It's a Miracle. And this is an Arista pressing. It's not an original Bell pressing. I've seen those, but I have not yet to come across one. And this is in just perfect condition. Now, I have a whole bunch of Barry Manilow. I've talked about that before, but some of it was in pretty bad shape. So what I did recently was just go looking for some really good copies of some of these albums. And the one that I got that I want to show you is this one. This is Trying to Get the Feeling. This was the follow-up. And this one is from 1976. Trying to Get the Feeling was a big hit off of here. I Write the Songs, and Looks Like We Made It. Some other really good things on here, like She's a Star. It's a song about Bette Midler. Beautiful music. It's a great record. And this is really before Barry Manilow kind of got formulated. I guess it's the best way. The first 3 albums are really interesting, and then when you get past This One's For You, he starts to sound sort of like a parody of himself. I mean, that's the reason why he took so much heat from all the critics back then. But this record is in absolute mint condition. And by the way, that's not including Copacabana. That one was different. Everybody loved that one. Okay. When I say he's a parody of himself, that's what I'm talking about. Cyndi Lauper. She's so unusual. I know I've shown this video, probably not in the last two, but sometime I've shown this in a video. This is from 1983, Portrait Records. It's in absolute perfect condition. Columbia, which distributed Portrait and many other small labels like Epic and a couple of others, the pressings that they put out in the 80s were just unbelievably quiet and clean, and this is one of them. I just had to share this. If you can find an original 1983 pressing of Cyndi Lauper's She's So Unusual, you will not be disappointed audio quality wise. And of course the music's fun too. That's why I like it. Just replaced this one. It's Sly and the Family Stone. It's their greatest hits. This is from 1970. I had a copy of this that I had bought years ago, and I think I showed it in a video about 10 years ago on the channel. And it was really in bad shape. It came with a whole lot of records that I picked up from a friend who picked them up for me, and I decided it was time to find a nice clean version. So this one is a little bit later pressing. This is not an original pressing. I think this would be probably mid-70s, but it is absolutely perfectly clean. Now, this has all of Sly's big hits except for a couple. Family Affair didn't make it to this record. That came out later in the year after this was released, and he had a couple more in the early 70s that didn't make it, but you get most of it. Sticking with the early 70s, Carole King. This is the Tapestry album from 1971, a blockbuster hit. I had a copy of this. It was in really bad shape, and it was so bad that I kind of felt guilty playing it because I was afraid it was wearing out the styli. It was just bad. So I decided to get another one, and I ordered an original pressing, and I got slightly burnt. The record is actually in good shape as far as not having scratches and nicks in it and stuff like that. But this record was really loved by somebody who played it on a machine where they didn't change the stylus. And so on the last tracks, you can hear the record wear. But overall, it's very listenable. And I think that if you're going to be getting originals for something like this that was such a huge hit anyway, you're probably going to have to put up with that. And the big songs off of here, It's Too Late and I Feel the Earth Move, that was a double-sided #1 single on Ode Records. And if you can find one of those in good shape, good luck. I've tried. Every one that I've come across has been tore up. I always wondered about that cat. I don't like to know his name. So if anybody knows, put it in the comments. I've been looking at that cat ever since I was a little kid. And another thing about this album was I always thought this was a New York album. I always associated Carole King with New York City because of, you know, she lived there and she wrote with Gary Goffin and worked with Phil Spector and all that stuff. And she went to school in Brooklyn with Neil Sedaka. Neil Sedaka actually had a song called Carol that was about her. You may remember that. Anyway, she worked in and around the music industry in the 60s, and she moved out to California in the early 70s after she got a divorce, and she fell in with the music scene out there, and they're the ones who encouraged her to record her own album. So that was recorded in LA, but I always thought it was a New York sound. Wrong. See, you learn something new all the time. This is from 1959. This is one of those albums that was an audiophile favorite back in the 60s, and I had a teacher named Dennis McCurdy who taught me radio in the 80s who loved Stan Kenton, and this was one of his favorite albums, so I picked it up. This is Stan Kenton's Road Show from 1959. This is the mono version, which is a bit of a bummer because the guy who posted the listing on eBay said it was stereo, and I didn't look close enough. The stereo version should have across the top, if it was from 59, stereo in big letters, because that was, of course, big that year. That was a big deal. and I just didn't notice it. So I got a mono version, but the version that I did get is in just about perfect condition. There's a book in here that talks about it. It's Stan Kenton and the Four Freshmen and June Christie, and it's their road show recorded at Purdue University. Very nice album indeed. If you like this sort of thing, I highly recommend it. This is the kind of record that you want to put on a cold night when it's storming outside and you got a fire crackling. It's good stuff. And finally, we will wrap up with Chicago. This is their Greatest Hits Volume 1 from 1975. And I got another copy of this album because I had a copy and it was tore up. And then I got another copy of that and it was scratched and didn't sound good. And I got a third copy. I have bought the, like I said, 3 times over the past maybe, I don't know, when did I start collecting records again? I probably bought it the first time around in 2010. And so anyhow, got another copy of it here. And this one is in much cleaner condition, but still not 100%. These are hard to find in good condition because people played them. And Columbia packed a lot of audio on this record. It's like almost a half hour per side. So the noise floor is a little high on these because they didn't use a lot of level when they recorded the records. And so anyway, I replaced that. I already had this album. This is Chicago's Greatest Hits Volume 2 from 1980, and there's nothing to see on the cover except all these different pictures of signs that say Chicago. And there's no song listing on this. This was, I don't know what kind of period they were going through when they put this out because, I mean, this is like zero promotion of any kind. There's just down here where it says it's distributed by Columbia Records. That's about it. So this is their stuff from 75 to 82. I love No Tell Lover from Chicago. That's on here. This album, by the way, is super clean. This was that period of time in the 80s, like I was talking about earlier with Cyndi Lauper, where Columbia made records that sounded really good. And finally, a new record that I bought. I mean, like brand new. Here is Chicago's Greatest Hits. This is Volume 3. And this is 1981 to 1989. And this is a new pressing. I picked it up on eBay. And it shipped from Studio City, California. I think I bought this directly from the record company. It comes with telling you what songs are on it and all that other stuff. And, buying a new pressing of an LP these days, even though they boast 180-gram vinyl and all this other garbage, is really a gamble. Some new records sound really good and others sound awful. Sometimes it's the mastering. Sometimes they overprocess the music. Sometimes the press is too hot and you get a lot of pops and cracks or your record's warped. They're just not as good at it as they used to be. It's getting better, though. There was a little while there where new records were really, if you bought one, it was probably going to be bad. But this one is absolutely great. They did a wonderful job, and this is a brand new pressing of that. So that's about it for this video. I thought I would just share those things with you guys. People like to see my records. I have been working with a new cartridge, playing around with it. Well, it's not a new cartridge. It's a new old stock that I bought last spring. It's the Audio-Technica AT91, which is based on the old AT3600. It's kind of an updated version of that I was interested in hearing what it sounded like. It has a carbon fiber cantilever, and it has a 0.6 mil conical stylus. And I bought one last spring. I was going to do a video about it to follow up on my AT3600L video about that cartridge, because this is sort of a slightly better version of that. And I found out that Audio-Technica discontinued the AT91, so I'm not going to do a video. But if you come across one of those things, they're really nice. And they're good for playing records that you just bought and you want to check out because the styli are super cheap. And because it is that Audio-Technica 211 body, the AT3600 style, there's all kinds of styli available for it. You can even get a really fancy, snazzy, upgraded Bliss stylus from Turntable Needles. And I have one of those, and it sounds really, really good on the AT91. Sounds good on the AT3600L too, but they are slightly different cartridges and they have a different sound. So if you're going to invest that kind of money, go ahead and see if you can dig you up a AT91 somewhere. Great cartridge. U-Turn distributes those with their turntables. They still have a bunch. I think they bought a whole lot of them. Cheap thrills, ladies and gentlemen. Well, thank you for watching the video. I'm signing off. Talk to you guys again soon. I'd love to hear your comments.